Awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cybersecurity Scams and Identity Theft. Well, we're not doing those things, we're helping avoid those things. We have Melanie Thompson here to present. Melanie, can you tell? Oh, let's give some rules while we're on here. What we're going to do is if you have a question that comes up during the presentation, just shoot it over in the chat and we'll go through each question at the end when Q&A. And please mute your mic. So, Melanie, thank you for presenting today for Justine Peterson's Lunch and Learn. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I am thrilled to be here. My name is Melanie Thompson. I am with Associated Bank. I'm in the Madison, Wisconsin area. So today I'm filling in for Desiree Friedman, and I have Loretta Holmes on the call here as well, who is from the St. Louis area. And so I get the pleasure of working with businesses and organizations to provide financial literacy in the workplace or through an organization. And so I typically we'll have different topics that we present on to grow your financial education, but also grow your financial wellness at the same time. So excited to be here to be able to present on this topic today. Okay to get started?
Yes, please. We're ready and waiting for you.
All right, perfect. Well, just a little disclosure here, just a disclaimer that I like to share before we get started is that the information that we're providing here is just based on our learnings and our findings. It's certainly not any legal advice, but you can certainly do research in addition. And so really what I'll be sharing is high level with some examples as well as trends that have been happening just for you to really be aware of. And so just want to give you that quick disclosure that this really is more informational that we are sharing with you today. Now, in today's digital world, we know that, it's really important to understand cybersecurity because there are so many risks involved that come with not only personal information, but also identity theft. And so for a financial institution to be able to share this information, really the root of that is to understand how it can impact you as a person and also as a business owner. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about different pieces to cybersecurity, making you aware of some of the tools, definitely the techniques and words. There are some big words when it comes to cybersecurity and fraud, so that you can really protect yourself and your information, really making sure that this isn't just a choice, but it's really a necessity in today's landscape because so much is digitally available to people. So what we're going to talk about in this session is just how you can really safeguard your personal information and steps that you can take to prevent identity theft. I'll share just a little bit that I've been in the financial industry for almost 24 years, and I've seen all different types of situations that have come from identity theft and loss of income, especially when it comes to your bank accounts and personal information. So we really want to highlight these different pieces. Just to cover on what each of these four components are that we'll certainly talk about and break down a little bit more so it's really easy to understand. We're going to talk about the threat landscape, and really what that means is how that really affects people, groups, businesses, also organizations, and knowing what types of threats are out there and that are happening. Also thinking about tools and attack methods that are used to really take sensitive information and target people not only in personal lives, but also potentially in work lives. And that could be, data breaches, ransomware, and different things like that. We're also going to talk about social engineering, and this is really the manipulation tactic or how people deceive a victim in order to gain control of either a computer. It could be their personal information or their financial information. And the stats are alarming when it comes to the amount of people that are affected through financial information and manipulation. A lot of people, especially in this category, really feel that they become vulnerable and susceptible to providing information, not only for themselves, but sometimes it's even family members. And often there's a lot of regret that comes with that. So this session really will help kind of make you aware of some of those red flags to be aware of. And you might have heard of phishing, which is a very common used tactic that involves email, text, and phone. And so we're going to cover all of that and break it down. And then also how you can take some preventative measures, right? What are some extra steps that you can take in order to prepare yourself and protect your personal information? and then also all of the awareness resources that you certainly need. And there are a lot of resources out there. I do have the chat up, so as I share a couple different pieces of resources, we can put some of those website links in there also. So we know that cybersecurity breaches really have an impact when it comes to financial impact on individuals and businesses. Again, with my experience in working in the financial industry, I've seen it happen at least on a monthly basis. And depending on the data breaches and the amount of information that's been, sent out and hacked, sometimes, I'm having conversations with people more than one time a week. And so there's three different pieces here that I really want you to be aware of. We've got the financial impact, we have the reputational impact, and then we have the business impact. And as you can see on the screen, it really does only take one click for all three of those to be impacted in a substantial way. So with the financial impact, let's just cover this really quickly. With clicking on the wrong thing, it can definitely cost you personally or a company an outrageous amount of money. And there are a lot of direct costs that's really come from this financial impact. And that could be, having a loss of funds, not only from your own bank account or a business account, having to pay for legal fees to kind of remedy what had happened and really get back your personal information and protection, downtime, the amount of time it's costing you to be able to take care of this matter. And then depending on the business, you might have some increased insurance premiums. Now, when I did a little bit of research on some organizations that have forked over due to ransomware and attacks, I found that Caesars International, you might have heard of this company, they forked over $15 million in ransom to attackers to keep business operations afloat, which is incredibly alarming. And also MGM, a lot of people have heard of MGM. It cost the company over $100 million in third quarter profits. And so that's why it's really important to have these conversations, not only being aware of it and top of mind as an individual, but also the impact on the organizations that you work for or the businesses that you run. Also to the reputational impact. A cyber attack doesn't just impact the bottom line, it can really impact your reputation, especially with use of sensitive information that might have been leaked, or if you become a victim of identity theft. I'm not sure how many we have on the call, but if you'd like to put in the chat, have you been a victim of identity theft or know someone? Feel free to type yes in there. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you can protect yourself when it comes to this. Two small businesses that I connected with recently in the last 2 weeks, both went through a social media hack, taking over their accounts, their posting, as well as all of the reviews that were associated with it. And so we've talked about some additional measures that can be put in place. And it looks like some have experienced this and some have not. Also, too, on the business side, I just want to share, serious attacks, especially with data breaches, that can really halt operations. It can disrupt services, and it can result in delaying products and services that are available to consumers. Now, I can raise my hand and say over the last year, there have been a couple different data breaches that I've received information for in the mail that's resulted in saying, hey, if you'd like to be a part of, the legal piece of this, where, there's a class action lawsuit because of a data breach, this is the information that you need to supply. Or, hey, we need to make you aware of this, and here are some steps that you can take to ensure that your identity is protected. And most importantly, I'll share is, placing credit freezes on credit reports are great ways to be able to do that. I wanted to share also too the top 3 attacked industries. And if you're taking notes, feel free to jot this down. It's construction, manufacturing, and industrial, as well as IT services and IT consulting, which is pretty surprising, to be honest, because IT, there are a lot of the brains behind, but they are highly targeted. Now, 60% of small businesses have certainly suffered significant breaches. And when that does happen, they're most often forced to shut down just based on the cost and the effect that does come with that. Now, 45% of municipal victims were also in smaller communities of residents of 50,000 or less people. And then I also wanted to share for many small to mid-sized companies, and I see some of the chat here. Thank you for sharing that your TikTok was taken, which is not uncommon. We've certainly heard about this as well, that the reputational side can really have a damaging effect, especially when it comes to small businesses, even mid-sized businesses, social media, and then their own personal brand that they've built for themselves. Oh, let's see, there we go. Now, I wanted to share some of the stats here on the screen. Feel free to take a look at that as well. The Federal Trade Commission, also referred to as the FTC, they released their scammy snapshot, and that's a little bit of a tongue twister here. And more available information will become available in 2024. And I also wanted to share a couple different stats out there. And you could actually do a Google search on this as well to look at these scammy snapshots. But in 2023, as you can see, 2.6 million reports of fraud, 2.6 million. And the data book also shares that people lost over $10 billion to scams in 2023. And that's $1 billion more than 2022, which was the highest reported loss ever for the Federal Trade Commission. So as you can see, it's a really substantial amount. Out of people that were losing money due to scams, the median loss was about $500 per person. And email scams was the #1 contact method for scammers here this past year. And a lot of those scam reports were businesses or agencies certainly being represented and pretending to steal money. And you could see that those are certainly done through phone calls. It could also be social media. But again, email being the highest reported and the most targeted. Now, when it comes to bank transfers, as you can see here, $1.8 billion in bank payments or transfers that were done. Cryptocurrency, $1.4 billion, and then wire transfers, alarmingly, $343 million. And as a financial institution representative, I can tell you I've had examples where I've had people come in to do wire transfers where we ask questions to really understand what the intent of the wire transfer is. Because I can say there have been several hundreds of $1,000s that have gone out the door because of scams. I personally was a victim of a social media scam 2 years ago when I was trying to take a trip with my kids out to Denver and book a baseball game on opening day. Doing as much research as I did and as educated as I was as a financial professional at that point for 22 years, I purchased on Marketplace, met a person and had tickets transferred to my Apple Wallet just to find out that the tickets did not scam. So, or scan, excuse me. So just imagine how devastating that was as a mom of 3 that are there to celebrate opening day. But it's everywhere. And, you know, there are red flags that you can look for, but sometimes you have to do some additional due diligence. Oh, let's see, here we go. Also wanted to share this in 2024, the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, so the GASA, also did a survey with Feedzai, okay? And this was sharing some alarming statistics, especially on the impact of scams. And so I wanted to just share this with you too, because it really does bring it to the forefront that $1.03 trillion was lost due to fraudulent activity. And so these are definitely some of the stats out there that you can see how many people were surveyed, the ages of the demographic, and again, the majority of those scams that were happening as well. Now, nationally, I just wanted to share that only 30% of people actually report experiencing fraud. And this can be, you know, this is something that is important regardless of the dollar amount of fraud that you experience. And it's so important that, you know, if you receive a scam text or a phone call, an email, that you're really taking those actions to be able to report it, whether it's to a financial institution, whether it's, you know, it could be the police department or even through different means of reporting. Now, the Better Business Bureau, you might have heard of that. We have one here in Wisconsin. I know they have one also in St. Louis, but they actually they publish a report every year. It's called the Scam Tracker Report. And if you just do a Google search on the BBB Scam Tracker Report, you'll be able to take a look at the top 10 scams of each year. And they do a fantastic job of really laying out all of the information of what those top 10 scams were, but also the top organizations that are most impersonated as well. And again, that's the Better Business Bureau, BBB. So let's talk a little bit about social engineering. Feel free to type in the chat if you've heard of what social engineering, but really what this is a manipulation technique where those cyber criminals will trick people into giving confidential information. And that's wanting to know what your passwords are, your account details, and then also access to some personal information. And a big thing is access to your computer. I don't know how many of you have heard of scams when it comes to saying that you need antivirus updates or that there might have been an attack on your computer. And this is where social engineering, uses this human psychology, really trying to get down to the root of your emotions and try to get you into feeling what your triggers are so that they can gain trust into some of your sensitive information. Now, I always tell people, and we'll talk about this a little bit deeper in here too, that if something seems too good to be true with an offer, it's always worth looking into. But if something seems to be pressuring you, it's also worth looking into to learn more. So 74% of breaches involve the human element, which is a huge number. This is where it's taking the brain and the psychology to really understand how you feel when it comes to being contacted for X, Y, and Z. Let's say an impact of your financial account. And so a lot of times when it comes to data breaches, this is what they're doing. They're looking at the human element. They're fishing for information. They're looking for credentials. They're trying to figure out if there's a way to be able to get access to your information. And so especially in a cybersecurity conscious culture, the best defense is to really try to avoid being tricked into all of those different means, as you can see. And handing over your information that could be really destructive. Most of the time too, a financial is not going to ask you for your account number along with your name, your password and your login, your social security number. What they do is they usually ask for a couple pieces of information to identify you, but it should be a red flag instantly if you're being asked for your user ID and your password, as well as gaining access to your account. I have had situations where people have said, I had somebody contact me from the financial institution and they needed to know my login credentials. Otherwise, they said that my account would be blocked. That should instantly raise a red flag to say, I'm going to just do my due diligence, hang up the call, not provide the information, and call my financial institution at the phone number that I know. Now, as you can see on the screen here as well, there are several steps when it comes to an attack chain and how these cyber criminals really scour for information. And these attacks really start at information gathering, right? It's wanting to get to know who you are, what they can get, what information they're susceptible to. And a lot of that information does come from social media sites, information that either you share or information that was shared throughout your network about you to be able to gain as much information as possible. Sometimes they're looking into your life, who it is that you're connected to, what information others are sharing. And so it really is important to limit the information that you share. Also, looking at some of the privacy settings that you have on your social media profiles, which is really important because there is so much information that's available within public view. Now, for myself, I have several social media accounts. We'll talk about different ones here on the next screen as well. But each of them will have different privacy settings that you can set for who has access to your information and what information you share and who it is with as well. Now you can see in this attack chain, it goes through the research, the tailored attack, delivering, the manipulation, then also how they can reap the rewards. And so I'd like to share too that the next step really in this chain is crafting messages that are really malicious and wanting to get to people. I'm not sure if I have a pop-up there, but I just closed that out. But just wanting to get to people to really spoof for information. And this is where, they might be trying to gain your information as quickly as possible, but they're going to approach you in a way that makes it look like it's coming from someone that you certainly do service with. And so this could be an email from a website that might look legitimate, or it might be a text message that looks like it's coming from someone that you've certainly had service with. And so one of the examples that I like to share is if you look at an email that it might be coming from PayPal. We all know that PayPal is PAYPAL, but if it's www.paypal.com, versus www.paypal with an extra L, that can make it seem like it's coming from a really legitimate site, but it actually could be a way of scamming you for your information. So you always want to make sure that you're looking at the website that is providing you with the information for you to act on, as well as making sure that you're looking at the link and making sure that there's a padlock there, and really ensuring that it's a site that has an HTTPS. I don't know if anybody's heard this before, but there are sites that will scam you with an HTTP, making it look like it is a legitimate site, but making sure that you see the HTTPS, which is protected as well. You know, I can tell you that there, as I mentioned several times, that people have come in wanting to send wire transfers, stating that they would lose all their financial information. But they've come in saying, you know, I was asked to verify this information to keep my subscription going, and they may have provided too much information, resulting in a loss of funds, and then needing to file fraudulent paperwork with the financial institution. As I mentioned here, looking at your privacy settings is really important when it comes to all pieces of social media. I know it does take some time to be able to look at all the different social accounts that you have, but it is absolutely worth taking that extra time to protect yourself. And especially when it comes to data breaches, information that's being shared, and protecting to avoid people really trying to impersonate you, as well as create multiple accounts on social media. As I mentioned, 2 people in the last few weeks that I've talked to have had their Facebook hacked, as well as TikTok. And both of them had additional ways to be able to change their privacy settings so that they would have additional measures. And we'll talk about multi-factor authentication as well. So some things that you can do is setting restricted privacy permissions, limiting what information is shared. Now, I know with Facebook specifically, you can change your location where it's not necessarily where you're at. When it comes to a business, obviously you want to really have the business there, but you can change some of your settings and you can use multi-factor authentication. You can also know, you know, who are on your friends list. Are you requiring, you know, who has access to be able to follow you, or who has access to friend you? As well. And so you can go in and look at some of those settings, not only with what you're sharing, but who has access and the ability to share with you as well. Now for Facebook, I personally have a privacy setting that if somebody was to tag me on Facebook, I have to approve it first, because then it allows me to say, okay, I'm going to share this on my own terms, whether it shares the information of where I was most recently at or who I am with. And so forth. And so it's really important to look at those settings that you have. Also, if you don't want information public, you can certainly make that more private. You can make it exclusive to the people that you know. You can make it exclusive to specific individuals. And I've certainly tested this out where you can block people, I would say, even though they're on your friends list or have access from certain information. And so that is something that you can certainly do. If you don't want your information to be public, this is really important to say, don't post it. Really, it has a great way of protecting you from any cyber criminal activity. And so if it's something that you're certainly not wanting shared, or you don't want people to see, you know, being cognizant of what it is that you're sharing. And then, you know, especially when it comes to a business, you know, if you have a PO box or using a home address for a business, that might not be something that you certainly want to share, but people can certainly reach out to you for further information on how to get connected. And each of those platforms also have several ways to get connected through messaging, instant messaging, or just the messaging feature. And then we'll talk also about how to create unique passwords across all of the accounts here in some of the other slides, just to make sure that, you know, it makes it less easy for someone to access your social media accounts or impersonate you when it comes to stealing your identity. And I'm sure several of you on this session here have either known someone or have been a victim of having your social media accounts hacked, because it is a very common thing. It's more common than we certainly want to account for. Now, there's a lot of different ways that attackers can use different methods into tricking us, and we'll break down these a little bit more. But as I mentioned earlier, the most common really is email. There is a substantial amount of people that receive phishing emails trying to fish for information. And some of you may have also received vishing. This is where you receive a phone call. It might be a robocall really trying to spoof numbers to make it seem like it's legitimate, coming from a business that you might know, or some sort of service, a bigger company that could be, a telephone company, it could be an internet company. And so it's important to just really be cautious on trusting caller ID and knowing that, numbers can easily be spoofed. We've seen this all the time. Smishing, this is through text message. This is something that's absolutely growing. I received last week a smishing text saying that I owed money to the Florida tollway. Anybody on this session received this text message that I have unpaid tolls, and if I don't respond in the next I think it was a couple days, that I will receive a citation. As well as, yes, I see that somebody else has received this too. Yeah, I'll receive a citation, and there will be some additional fees that will be charged to me if I do not pay these fees right away. Now, another form of this is a brand new one here. It's called squishing, and this is the QR code phishing. And so this is something that's very new, where scammers are getting more creative in ways to find ways to manipulate and also get in front of people. And so what they do is they may put a QR code on something with access to saying, okay, an example of this could be having to pay for a parking meter. And this was something that actually happened in Texas, where cyber criminals were placing QR codes on parking meters and stealing credit card information from people who were scanning these QR codes. And so it's always good to, look at being aware of what it is that you're entering information into, because more and more cyber criminals are getting creative in ways that are certainly trying to beat the system. And as we know, they're continuing to do that for these cyber criminals. It's certainly a full-time job. But the more that we can be aware and diligent, it's really important. Now, phishing, we talked about this a little bit here, but most of the time with phishing, they're after your information. And so it's important to understand what it is that's being requested. And so a lot of these will come through email, it'll come through social media, it'll come through bank accounts, really trying to get you to kind of click and bait for information, where you're putting in personal information to assume some sort of service or protect yourself from what they would say is, fill this form out so we can make sure that you are not at a loss of your financial institution, or you're not losing your membership, XYZ. And so there's a lot of different ways that they can certainly make threats to steal your information and impersonate you. And so you can also find some information on the Cybersecurity Planning Guide. That's at cisa.gov, just to share more information, especially when it comes to cyber attacks. Wanted to just give you some steps here as well when it comes to phishing for criminal intent. You can see that there are the 5 steps on here, and this is really the oldest crime in the book. And again, more people are getting creative. We've talked about this, but it's important that organizations, regardless of the size, even if you're a single owner or if you have a few employees, even mid to large size businesses, that make sure that you are looking for all of these means to protect yourself, so that you don't have things that are certainly worth stealing. And so here you can see the phishing email is sent, usually coming from some phony address, and we'll look at some examples of this. If you are one that's being solicited, you click on the fraudulent URL, you're directed to the fake site. This is where then you put in those credentials, and then this is where all of those criminals and those actors certainly have access to your information. So to detect a phishing email, we just want to give you some steps to be able to look at, and we have some examples that we'll certainly share here. And so first one, saying really not trusting the display name of the email sender, just because it says it's coming from someone that you might know. doesn't mean that you should necessarily trust it. And I know, especially within the organization, when we are doing phishing tests, it's always good to look at who is sending the information because it can absolutely look legitimate. Looking but not clicking, you can certainly hover over the mouse to look for parts of the email without having to do anything and without giving information. But it's always important to look at, what does the description say? Who is this coming from? Especially if it's a business to a business, or if it's an internal business to internal partner. Is the signature looking legitimate in comparison to what you've generally seen? That's a big trigger that I see, is a lot of times the signatures seem off. There were several times that I would get an email as a phishing scam from an outside organization trying to represent the CEO of the company that I work for. And so right away, I'm like, okay, I know this is definitely not legitimate because there's no logo attached, there's no actual title, there's no location. So there's different things like that. Also looking for any grammar errors. This is a big thing because especially when it comes to attackers, they're really not concerned about spelling or grammar, more so than like a normal sender would be. I know for myself, probably many of you on the call, that if you're sending an email out, you take a minute to pause, making sure that you're looking for grammar errors and that your message is concise before you're sending it. And a lot of times you'll see that you will see several grammar errors that are really easy to spot once you're really focused on that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to take a moment to pause and really look to see if this is a legitimate email. Also considering the salutation. A lot of times when it comes to attacks, they're very general. They might say, dear valued customer, instead of like, good morning, Loretta. They're just going to be a very general, basic thing. And so sometimes what they'll do is they'll just take automated AI templates, pop that in as well. Is the email asking for personal information? This is certainly something to take into consideration, especially with legitimate companies that you do business with. They're not asking for your personal information via email. Also being aware of the urgency. A lot of times when it comes to hacking and cyber criminals, they try to make it seem like there's some sort of emergency that needs to be responded to. An example was I received an email at one point throughout my career that said, the CEO needs you to send $1 million in a wire transfer to XYZ. And that right away would be a red flag. Actually, I did receive one a couple months ago, now that I remember it, was that they were wanting me to go purchase gift cards, Apple gift cards, and they wanted me to send the card numbers back to the CEO via email. Well, interestingly enough, I was on the first floor of the building and the CEO was on the 5th floor. So if anything, I would just hand that over in person. But great example of just saying that, these attackers are looking for ways to get means of some sort of financial information or monetary access to accounts or even gift card access. That's a big thing. And you see this a lot with elderly abuse when it comes to phishing as well. Being careful of attachments, especially with attachments. Those fraudsters certainly like to trick you into enticing that this attachment, is normal. Open this to receive more information. And sometimes that does contain malware. And so that could look suspicious. Not believing everything that you see, because sometimes things certainly seem too good to be true. We know this, but sometimes it's best to report it. Especially working for an organization, if something just doesn't seem right, you can always hit the phishing button. And the best case scenario is that the IT department would come back and say, hey, this is a legitimate email. But the worst case scenario is clicking on that without doing the due diligence and potentially putting yourself and the organization at risk. And then, if you are working for an organization that you have the ability to report to an IT department, you could do that as well. Yes. So some organizations instill a phishing button within Outlook email for you to report an email that looks concerning as well. And so you might have that button available within the organization to be able to report that, and IT would then report back as well. Also, some things to look at when it comes to phishing emails. I just wanted to show some red flags here, just based on what I had shared. You can see this one is the Norton renewal confirmation. This is a very highly targeted phishing email that I've seen and heard of so often, where, you know, a subscription is coming due and a renewal is needed. And this is why, especially when it comes to finances, it's always really important to look at your accounts and look at your transactions, whether it's on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, just to make sure that you're aware of the subscriptions that you're certainly signed up for. Because if you're not doing the due diligence, it can be an out of sight, out of mind thing. Now, when it comes to Norton, especially the internet security and the virus, this is more of like a semi-annual or an annual thing that people would pay for legitimately. And so it can, you know, if you're someone who has had this type of protection, you receive this, you might think that this is your renewal. But as you can see, you know, it looks like a suspicious sender. It's a really generic message here. You can see the grammar, especially when it comes to your products being listed on the screen. That's really not how you would actually write your and urgent language to respond. So these are, this is just an example of kind of that instant, we need you to respond as soon as possible to be able to take advantage of getting this renewed. That's the word, renewed, your subscription renewed. DocuSign, especially when it comes to using e-sign services, you know, this is also a really big target for fraudsters, is saying, you know, hey, I need you to fill out this form. Here's some additional information that we need from you. And so things to look out for are the email address, you know, making sure that if there is a fake email address, that might be forged in there from who it is, and that can easily be altered. I've seen too, where some people will try to impersonate a financial institution. And for example, you know, I'm working for Associated Bank. They might have an extra S in there where somebody's, you know, just taking a quick glance and seeing that it looks like it's legitimate. Always looking to see where this link goes. You can hover over your mouse as well to make sure that you're seeing if it looks like it's a legitimate website in your URL in your browser. And then also using some of those other suggestions with looking at generic greetings. Are they creating a false sense of urgency as well? And that typically is what you'll see. I wanted to just share one more here where you can see that this one comes from the accounting department, CCing the Tom, it looks like at Strategic IC Tax, and asking for W-2s for all employees. And so here, this is an email that's impersonating an authoritative person at a company. And this is not uncommon when it comes to people knowing who senior management is, and information being public, requesting information from you. So if you look at this one, you can see the message is coming from the CEO at Better Systems, Inc. But if you actually look at it, it's going, you know, to the accounting department, requesting all of this information and W-2s. And so really it is, when there's urgency created and some things don't necessarily align, those are some big things to look for. Oh, here we go. I just wanted to share one more here. This is where you can impersonate a financial institution, requiring that like an invoice can be paid. Again, using that, you know, subscription services are a big one where people impersonate a financial institution saying, I need you to make this payment so that you can continue to use your bill pay. Or I need you to make this payment so you can continue to use this type of service. And I'm sure we can all think of examples of subscriptions and services that we use that could certainly be impersonated. I know with telephone companies, cell phone services, subscriptions for mobile uses, you know, TV, things like that. There's a lot of different ones that certainly can be impersonated. And so it's always good to learn more. Now, some of the protection measures that you can take, especially with trying to stay safe online, I just wanted to share that with you, and some of the statistics, because it really is alarming out there. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you can create passwords of strength so that you're protecting yourself and your identity. And so just a couple statistics to be aware of. 53% of Americans use the same password for multiple accounts. I have done this over, you know, the years and realized as I've grown my knowledge when it comes to how you can protect yourself and your identity, the importance of being able to change up the passwords that you're using, not only personally, but for the office and also at work. 80% or 81% of the hacking really is due to breaches because of weak passwords. So we'll talk about how you can create stronger passwords. And then when you when you have multi-factor authentication, this is like a two-step process or different ways to get identified. You can actually protect yourself 99% of the time by using those other pieces of verification. And I know that those extra steps can be somewhat annoying or time consuming, but when you take the time to be able to do that, whether it's through email or social media forums, it just puts you in a better position of being able to protect yourself. I did share using a strong password can definitely be a game changer. Again, it takes some time to type in your password, but sometimes what you can do is you can say, you know, memorize this for the next 24 hours if you end up going into a platform for a certain period of time. But using unique passwords for all of your online accounts is really important. Also differentiating from personal as well as business. Really being conscious of using personal information. It's really easy to create passwords with our first name, with our last name, with the last four of our social, with our birth dates, but also being cautious of, okay, what about the password that they give you? Yes, if there's a way to be able to change the password once they give you a temporary password, highly suggested doing that because you should be the only person with access to your password as well. And then also using longer length of characters, special characters, numbers, including upper and lowercase to really be complex. And I wanted to share that here on the screen. You can see this, I love big dogs, definitely is a little bit more challenging to type in, but you'd be quite surprised with that type of password, how long you can save yourself from having a password hacked. And so I did want to say, just share here some of the password complexity when you actually start incorporating more than just numbers or one character, and how you can, protect yourself from having a shorter time frame of your password potentially being hacked. And so as you can see with the examples here, how easy it is to hack a password instantly with numbers only. And there are a lot of systems and I would say organizations or businesses that are requiring a certain character. As you can see with numbers only, it's pretty much instantly. With 14 characters of numbers only, it is instant that your password can be cracked. I did this research yesterday. I was like, let me try a new password since I was signing up for my new computer and I was changing things around. And does anybody want to take a guess? Well, I'll go back to the last screen here. If anybody wants to take a guess here in the chat, that if you were to do a 14 password character, how long do you think that would take to crack a 14 password character in comparison to a 22 password with characters that are upper and lowercase? Go ahead and type that in the chat if you would like to take a guess, and I will let you know what I found. 7 years. All right, so we have 7 years in there. And so, okay, 2 days versus 9 years. So yeah, so I did a 14 character password, and Andrew, you've got it there. It was 2 days to be able to crack that password. And I decided to try a 22 character, and it was 48,000 years. 48,000 years just in that difference of characters. So something certainly to think about. Also, we know, as adults in the industry, how important it is to keep your passwords private. But, we're on the go and we're busy all the time. I've certainly done it where I've written down a password and I'm like, I need to, really do a good job of keeping this safe. And there are different ways that you can protect yourself with password protector apps. I know a lot of iPhones have that functionality as well. So how you can defend your company or your organization or yourself as an individual. We like to use the words be patiently paranoid, especially when it comes to suspicious phone calls, texts, and emails, before responding, taking that time to really just take a moment to kind of read it, think about it and say, okay, I just received an email from Tom and I know Tom really well. And so instead of me responding to that email, I'm going to send Tom a text, or I'm going to see if I can give Tom a call to see if he sent me that email. Also verifying links and attachments. This is where the attacker really wants to really look at installing malicious software on your computer or getting you to provide some of those credentials that we've talked about. Being aware of the urgency. And this is really, we see this a lot where urgency is like, okay, I want to, kind of get into your head and say, I need this, information right away, or XYZ might happen. And so, although it can be really scary, not the most favorite thing to think about, especially if somebody sends you a message trying to say, hey, I need this information now, or your account will be hacked, or I need this information now, or, I might say that I'm holding somebody hostage, because this does happen. Really think about it, and really try to put emotions aside and really look for those key indicators that we've talked about. Not necessarily replying to the sender if you don't, trust who you're sending information to, and just taking some time to just really think before opening an email. And I always say, just take those extra 2 minutes, just to really kind of scan over and look at everything can really be a tremendous savings for you. And also not only protect your pocketbook, especially when it comes to financial information, but protect your time, because time really is valuable. Also, with multi-factor authentication, I mentioned a little bit about this as well, is that, taking time to really add that extra layer of security that you can do on all of your different types of accounts. There's so many apps for those of you that are using iPhones or Samsungs, and you're downloading apps all the time. A lot of them will have access to different pieces and different layers that you can either do through face screening. It might be additional passwords that you're typing in. It might just be some of the privacy settings. Multi-factor authentication, what can happen is, let's say you have a personal email and you have a business email, you might actually put both of those in there, so that if you were to access one, the other one has to give you an approval to be able to do so. And other pieces of that could be through fingerprint authentication, and so forth. So I just wanted to share that with you as well. The importance of, having multi-factor authentication on those accounts, to really reduce the amount of risk of being hacked, not only on your own personal computer, but again, try from getting your personal information compromised. And I know we didn't add it in this section here, but the importance of putting credit freezes on the credit bureaus are really important, especially when it comes to identity theft and protection. As a mom of 3, I have that on my 17-year-old, I have it on my 21-year-old and my 24-year-old, and they all understand the importance. I have it on there as well. And so that's just a great way, in the event of any type of scams or fraud, that you have that back end piece protected when it comes to credit, because it can really reduce a lot of the stress that comes from having to kind of manage all those different pieces. And so you can do that free through the credit bureaus, and you have the ability to control that as well. So I just wanted to take a peek here at the chat, and go ahead and introduce Loretta as well. And we'll get to questions maybe once after Loretta is going to take over the screen as well. Oh, is everyone still there?
Yes, we're here, Melanie.
Okay, I think I lost everyone here. I'm not sure where everyone went.
We can still see you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hi, Loretta.
Hello, can you guys see my screen?
We can't, but we can see you.
Okay, I'm trying to share. Let's see.
What are you wanting? Oh, okay, there you go. It's letting
Can
me
you,
share.
you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, my name is Loretta Holmes, and I'm the senior bank manager here at Associated Bank in the East St. Louis office. And I've been with the company 39 years, so I have been around a long time, and love doing these type of things, educating the citizens of our community. But what I want to talk about today is, because Justine Peterson is part of our we got a new name, so I got to make sure I'm saying this right. It used to be Bank at Work, but now it's our what is it called? Our wellness. Let me get it right now. I wrote it down, so I'll make sure I say it right. Our workplace financial solution program. What a mouthful, right? Well, anyway, because Justine Peters is part of that program, any anyone who listened to, the presentations we do is considered part of our part of that program. So with what that's being said, it's a benefit where you can get up to $600 in a checking account if you open an account with us. So what I want to let you know, you can earn up to $600, and it's kind of based on the balance that you maintain in the account. So if you see here anything less than 1,000, you can earn $100. If you go from 1,000 to 4,999, you can get $300. 5,000 to 9,099, $400, and 10,000 or more, you can get $600 added to your account. You get that within 120 days of the account being open. And what we require is you have direct deposit go into that account of at least $500 or more within 90 days. So as you grow your balances, you can grow your bonus. The bigger the balances, the bigger the bonuses. And there's some great things also with this account. Early pay. You can get, if you have direct deposit, you can get your pay 2 days early. So you can't say, oh, Chime, I get my pay 2 days early. Well, with Associated Bank, you can get it 2 days early too. And also, there are some great things that we have here. We have the early pay. We have the $50 grace zone. So if you overdraft $50 or less, you won't get an overdraft fee. We have over 30,000 ATMs that you can use. As long as it has Money Pass on that ATM, they're in our network, so you can use that free. Free overdraft protection transfers. You can control your debit card. So some people lose their debit card. They may just misplace it in a house or in their purse. And they're like, oh, I can't find it. You can go on your online banking and manage it. You can shut it down until you have a little more time to look for it. But if you can't find it, you can come into one of the branches and we can print one for you. So some places don't have that. You have to wait, but we can print it for you. We got money monitoring, and you can also see what your credit is. You can see what a credit score is out there. So it gives you some type of idea what you're working with. If you want to work on improving your credit, you don't know what your credit score is, we have that where you can see that on your online banking. So there is a QR code here that you can scan if you want to open an account with Associated Bank. I have the QR code. Yolanda, I can also send this email to you where you can have it. I'm not sure if Desiree sent it to you or not, but I can send this email to you and you can get it out to your participants as well. So
Desiree
those are the
sent it.
great things that we have for Associated Bank, and we would love to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Loretta. And Desiree did send the flyers ahead of time. We'll
Okay.
add it to our newsletter. I'll give it Andrew. We'll add it to our newsletter. So there were some questions in the chat. Were you finished, Loretta? I'm
I'm
sorry.
done. Yes. No,
Okay.
I just had that.
Yes,
There was
I did catch that one from Cassandra on money muling. So that's just really where people are transferring money to cyber criminals without even knowing it. And that's just kind of like that pressure of like creating like an instant response to say, hey, I'm going to send my credentials. Basically, it's like people are like, oh, I'm not realizing that I'm doing this and giving cyber criminals my information. I know like sweepstakes are a really big thing when it comes to that of saying like, hey, you're, to enter to win the sweepstakes, we need your information. I believe that was the only one. If there's another one, let's see.
No, you answered mine. I had a question,
Okay.
and you answered it while you were going through because my TikTok was stolen.
Oh, goodness.
And all my people, I don't even know how to get it back, but I'll figure it out. It's real. And the reality of it is I didn't even know it was stolen until my daughter was like, oh yeah, I meant to tell you I saw someone on your TikTok. I'm like,
Cool.
and But this has been awesome. All of the great information that you've sent us, and thank you, Loretta, for that the bank offer that you have. I'll make sure our businesses are aware of it.
Okay.
This was very, very highly informational. Melanie, thank you so much, and thank you, Loretta, for your time.
You're
Is
welcome.
there any, huh?
I just said you're
Um,
welcome.
Oh, thank you. If there's any questions, you guys can unmute and ask the question. We have about three minutes to go.
And thank you for joining today. It's really great that you're prioritizing cybersecurity and also financial wellness. So thank you for joining.
I had a question. Will this recording be available to people in the future?
Yes, Cassandra, we'll have this recording available.
Great. Where will they be able to find it? I was thinking for my parents, this would be really good for them as older citizens to be able to see this kind of information because they don't always listen to their daughter.
Yeah, I understand. They listen to others sometimes faster than they listen
Right.
to us. And do you guys offer anything other for like, is your parents in like a senior facility or anything, or is just your parents?
No, they're just my parents, but and they have their own home and everything, but sometimes, they usually will call me.
Okay.
I'm an attorney, so I try to keep up on all these things for my clients as well as myself because you would be shocked at how many times you get the call, oh, this is going on. Was this true? And so I try to be a little more aware of what's out there as well as how to look for other things
Yeah.
for them. And I was thinking this would be good for my parents. They're retired. They can sit at home and see this hour program.
So Andrew says that it'll be on YouTube later today. He usually puts the Lunch and Learns up. If you go to Justin Peterson's YouTube, you'll be able to click on there. The reason why I was asking was your parents in the facility are a part of a senior community is because this maybe, Melanie would be able to present to them as well, if that was a possibility. But the information will be available on our YouTube, and Melanie and Loretta's information is up in the chats if you want to jot it down for later. You guys, I thank you for everything. That was a great question, Cassandra. And I look forward to, our partnership. If you have anything that we can do for you, always reach out and have a great day, okay?
Thank
Likewise,
you.
take care.
Have a nice
All right,
day.
Thank
bye-bye.
you.